Alexander Zverev, a tennis player that everyone just wants to talk about for some reason. Yeah, people really have opinions about this guy, and those opinions range all over the place. Boring, passive, not good enough, or the greatest player to never win a slam. Which one of these actually holds up, and where do we even draw the line?
I figured the best way to settle this is just to lay it all out there and then break it down in the most comprehensive way.
Starting from his seemingly boring style of play. Damn, y'all really don't mess with Sasha's game, huh? Okay, so here's the thing. Alexander Zverev fits into what we call the big serving counterpuncher mold, a modern breed of really tall players who pair an elite, high-percentage first serve with exceptional counterpunching. And by counterpunching, I mean defending at a really high level, redirecting pace, and being disgustingly consistent from the back of the court. The serve buys free points, and the rallies slowly squeeze errors out of opponents rather than going for broke on every swing. Think Hurkacz, think Medvedev. Yep, you guys have seen this playbook before. You'd expect a 6'6" player like Sasha to struggle with low balls and lateral movement, but he doesn't. He's an elite defender who most players struggle to break down.
Boring. Okay, so why does the boring label stick?
Honestly, we've been spoiled. Federer, Alcaraz, think of some of the best shot makers we've ever seen. Attack will always be sexier to watch than defense.
But here's the thing, that contrast in styles is exactly what makes the sport interesting.
Consistent, high-percentage tennis is a skill, and it should be respected, not dismissed. Nobody's out here calling Sinner's baseline efficiency boring, right? And Zverev isn't just grinding either. When he's in rhythm and somebody gives him a short ball, he steps in and rips it. He can go cross-court, down the line, with real disguise on the backhand. He's not just redirecting, he can absolutely hurt you. Defense should be celebrated in tennis the way it is in every other major sport.
It's not boring, it's just different.
But you know what actually is a problem? Being too passive. And this is where the criticism gets real. Sometimes Sasha just camps out deep behind the baseline and waits. He'll trade backhand cross courts all day long or punch a safe forehand right back down the middle and just sit there. Sasha gets away with it against most players, but for someone like Carlos, nah, you're getting torched.
Flushed.
Now there are two schools of thought on why Zverev gets passive.
Some people think it's psychological. He tightens up in the big moments. Others point to something more technical. The longer swing path on his ground strokes means he needs more time to set up, so stepping in and flattening out, the way Sinner or Alcaraz can do almost on autopilot, doesn't come as naturally to him, especially when he's getting rushed.
That said, and I want to give credit where it's due, this year's Australian Open showed us something.
Those forehands Zverev was unloading all tournament, those were some of the biggest we've seen from him at a major.
That's how he's going to win.
And we know what he's capable of on the biggest stage.
That's got to be the best forehand.
When Zverev decides to be aggressive, stepping in, going down the line, rushing the net, he's almost unplayable. Nadal kept hammering this point into him during their time together.
He told me during the week, I don't know how many times he told me, I need to be more brave. He always told me, like, when you're aggressive, it's so difficult to hurt you because I could always move quite well. So I could kind of find the aggressive game from difficult positions. When I kind of become passive, that's when I'm more hurtable for the top guys.
And that's exactly why his fans get so frustrated. Because that aggressive version of Sasha exists. It shows up. And then it disappears for like 2 or 3 sets, and nobody knows where it went. Now, he has been more proactive on the backhand recently, injecting pace cross-court out of nowhere. Or redirecting with real intent, which is encouraging to see.
So is he passive?
If you're holding him to the highest standard, and right now that standard is named Alcaraz and Sinner, then yes, he can get passive under pressure on the biggest stage. But against 99% of the field, he gets the job done, and his resume backs that up. Here's where things get heavy though, because no matter what Zverev does, the titles, the consistency, the years inside the top 5, his whole career is essentially riding on one question. Can he beat either Sinner or Alcaraz to win a major? Is he still good enough?
Look, I'll be real with all of you. At the beginning of this year, I thought his window was starting to close, but I've since walked that back a little bit.
Contrary to what one of our subscribers, Aaron, thinks, I think there's still a 2 to 3 year window where a slam is genuinely possible. He turns 29 in April, so the physical peak conversation is going to start coming up more and more. But right now, Zverev is a legitimate top 4 or 5 contender at every slam, except Wimbledon, where he's never made it past the 4th round, which is a whole separate conversation. For Zverev to actually close it out at a slam, he's going to need some psychological rewiring. He has to be brave when it matters most, and Nadal said as much himself.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Anyhow, if you think Zverev isn't talented enough to win a slam, you'll have to give me a pretty good counter-argument in the comments.
That being said, it doesn't mean that there isn't any area for improvement. There clearly is. Let's start from the very first shot. Zverev should be taking more advantage of his serve. Stats don't tell the whole story, but they do paint a picture here. This is a graph showing the first serve percentage of the current top 10 players. The red line you see here represents the top 50 average, sitting at 63%. Down at the bottom, we have Alex de Minaur, who is comfortably the worst server inside the top 10, and hovering around the average, we have Bublik and Sinner. And above that, we have all of these guys making a high percentage of first serves. And Zverev? Oh, he's up here, by himself. Daylight between Sasha and everyone else. Zverev has made close to 90% of first serves in some matches, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Making such a high percentage of first serves should guarantee you tons of free points. Don't get me wrong, Zverev rakes in an insane amount of free points on his serve. His 97 aces at the AO was more than any other player. But unfortunately, despite making such a high percentage of first serves, Zverev somehow isn't converting many of them into points at the top of the leaderboard. All of these players have won a higher percentage of first serves than Sasha in the last 52 weeks.
Now, here's the thing. A number of factors come into play when you're winning points behind your first serve.
What does the serve speed and placement look like? How deadly is your +1? How effective are you at the net? In Zverev's case, he tends to sort of get it in safely and serve within himself. Fewer double faults, more first serves in. Look at this trend. Every single year, Zverev's double fault rate has dropped and his first serve percentage has gone up. That's not an accident. He's deliberately gotten more conservative on his first serve to keep it in play more consistently and avoid hitting too many second serves, which happened to be a weakness in the past. Fewer double faults, more first serves in, safer tennis. The trade-off? He's leaving pace and placement on the table. Players like Bublik, Shelton, and Fritz make fewer first serves, but when those serves land, they're aces, unreturnable kicks, or they're forcing such a weak return that the point is basically over before it starts. Compared to the others, you could argue that Sasha's first serve is relatively more conservative. The speed is great, but I wouldn't consider the placement super elite, especially for a player of his height. There's just more juice to squeeze out of it.
At his height, it just seems like he should be generating more unreturnable angles, in my opinion.
And then there's the +1 problem. Even when the serve lands well, Zverev doesn't always capitalize on the short ball it creates. Outside of his purple patches, the forehand can be weirdly loopy and slow, and that just invites guys back into the point. Zverev's +1s sometimes come back to bite him, especially when the pressure points hit. I'm gonna say the obvious here, but against the elite, you can't afford to decelerate on your +1. You cannot serve big and then go 75% on the next ball, because Alcaraz is gonna pick that up and make you pay every single time. The net game is another piece of this. Sometimes he's late on the approach, and when he does get to the net, he doesn't always put the volley away with enough authority. On the return side, there's been a slight dip since the ankle injury in 2022. Not dramatic, but it's noticeable if you've been watching him closely. He's still a quality returner with deep court positioning, defending on instinct, absorbing pace, and neutralizing without needing to generate much of his own. Kick serves into the backhand, not a problem for a guy with his frame. He'll drag you into a long, tedious backhand cross-court battle, and he will outlast you. But, and this is the exploitation blueprint, if you can redirect traffic to his forehand and force him into more forehand exchanges, your chances of beating him go up significantly. Alcaraz figured this out a while ago and has been running that play consistently. Players have also used blocked returns to pull Zverev into the net and force him to approach on his forehand, knowing that he can struggle to generate his own pace on that wing. When he doesn't put that ball away, he's suddenly wide open for the pass.
The discipline and the consistency are there. The killer instinct, though, especially in those big moments at slams, just isn't quite developed yet.
And a few players have figured out that introducing chaos into his rally patterns really throws him off. Zverev is comfortable in a groove. Take away the groove, and he can look a little lost. I think he needs to be willing to try new things. Zverev rushes the net more often, and yet still isn't as comfortable as he is from the baseline. Now, we have to talk about this. Not being able to evolve fast enough is probably why Zverev still has the tag of being the best player never to have won a slam.
This is the worst.
Zverev has since surpassed Berdych to become the tennis player with the most weeks inside the top 10 without having won a slam. As a matter of fact, Zverev has been in the top 7 for a decade, and the only year he missed out was in 2022, where that ankle injury ended his season early. Zverev has won everything there is to win except a major, and if he manages to get over the hump, I have every reason to believe that he certainly won't go down as a one-slam wonder.
Moving on to the mental side of things,
Zverev's record against top 10 players in best-of-5 at slams is not pretty right now. And the Fritz situation is almost baffling at this point. 6 straight losses across different tournaments, different surfaces, different situations. Fritz's combination of big serving and consistent ball striking off both wings has given Zverev fits, and it doesn't seem like he's found a real answer for it yet. What separates Sinner, Alcaraz, and historically Djokovic from everyone else is the ability to pull something special out of thin air in the biggest moments, almost on command. Zverev just isn't at that level yet, and the fact that he's spoken openly about his struggles has given some people the impression that he's mentally fragile.
I feel very alone out there at times. I struggle.
here's where I'm going to push back on that narrative, though. Calling Zverev mentally weak is essentially the same thing as calling most tennis players mentally weak.
Yes, does the mental component show up in the wrong moments sometimes? Sure, but that's not weakness. That's the game. Even the greatest players ever have cracked under pressure at some point. Some of you think the move at this stage is getting his father out of the coaching box, but Zverev says his father knows him better than anyone else.
Coaching for most players is something that's super personal, and for Zverev, he likes to keep it in the family. He's had success with his dad and his brother at his side, so maybe he hasn't really felt the need to change things up. But that said, he did spend some time with Tony Nadal last year. Maybe the new perspective is going to help?
Zverev's attitude and on-court demeanor has also improved over the years as he's developed into a more mature player, and at this point in his career, there honestly isn't too much he's doing wrong. Plus, we have to keep in mind that Zverev plays an entirely different sport altogether. Managing type 1 diabetes while being a top 5 contender at Grand Slams has gotten glossed over for so long. There are no days off with this illness, no off switches, and this is what Zverev goes through during matches.
You see me taking gels during matches a lot of the time, and when your sugar is high, you feel slow. Your muscles are not working. You feel like you're just tired. I have to really take care of what I eat. I have to really take care of when I eat it, because that all obviously impacts the sugar levels. That all impacts the match, and then that impacts the outcome.
Imagine thinking of how to beat Alcaraz while simultaneously managing your blood sugar in real time.
Think about that, and then tell me this guy is somebody who has a weak mindset.
Add the career-threatening ankle injury in 2022, the emotional and psychological weight of the back-to-back slam final losses, and everything else this man has had to navigate, and the fact that he's still a legitimate slam contender in 2026 says something real about his character. There are lots of positives to take away from Sasha's AO campaign. His 5-setter against Alcaraz in the semis was inspiring, even though Sasha served for both the second and the fifth sets and lost both. He was just upset early by Misha Kecmanovic in Acapulco, but honestly, the Sunshine Double is the real measuring stick coming up. And 2026 could be a genuinely pivotal year for Sasha.
Looking back to late last year, Zverev was still right up there with the big guys, but just couldn't really get past the line, especially Sinner on the indoor hard courts in Paris and Vienna. Now, I'm not calling Zverev's chances for a major this year, but if by some chance, one of Sinner or Alcaraz crashes out at Roland Garros and Zverev can just get by the other one, that's probably going to be his best shot. But what do you guys make of Zverev at this point? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you don't think he has the game and the talent to win a major at this point. Make the case. I really want to hear it. Guys, if you love this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and look out for me on the road. I'm currently in Austin at the ATX Open, and then heading to Indian Wells and Miami later this month, so definitely if you see me around, be sure to say hi. I'm definitely going to be looking for all of you, and until next time, keep going for the lines.